So it is 7 o'clock, and thank you for joining. Thank you, my person, for joining. It is 7 o'clock, and for those of you who do not know me, my name is Dr. Rayanne King. I am the owner of Dr. Rayanne King Consulting, LLC. I am also a proud graduate of the Florida State University in Tallahassee, Florida, but I only know people from FAM. I also am a proud graduate of Nova Southeastern University, where I got my master's degree, and I'm an extremely proud graduate of the Howard University, the Mecca in Washington, D.C., where I received my doctorate in educational leadership and policy studies. I am a former teacher, math coach, data coach, testing coordinator. I have been over MTSS. I've been over a lot of things, teacher programs, and all these great things. I've had the opportunity to work with STEM, and I've partnered also with Johns Hopkins University, Bowie State University, Inventus Mentis, Data Informed Impact, and I have been I was a two-year fellow with the National Council of Measurement Education. So with all that being said, tonight we are going into day 2 of our three major assumptions that educators make. And what does my company solve? So this will make sense on why this is a topic. My company, our focus is to solve the effects of assumptions that teachers have. So when teachers have assumptions, they many times label students, and those labels can go with them way beyond the school day and the school time frame and follow them throughout life. And so it's my goal to ensure that teachers have the tools to create spaces, and schools have the tools to create spaces of grace, spaces of redemption, and spaces of second chances. And even if you're watching this on the replay, if you understand how important grace is, you can type grace in the comments. Also, just so when you see this on the replay, or for those that are coming in, we also have leadership strategy sessions that are available. So I've been promoting more of my work. I'm usually very quiet and shy about the things I do, just because y'all will see little posts and stuff, but I do a lot, but I don't know. I don't talk about a lot. But now that I'm branching and opening my own company, I talk about it a little bit more. And so people have been seeing more and wanting more support and advice. And believe it or not, now building a company on your own, anybody that did it knows it's a lot of work. And I'm still a principal. I'm still an active principal. And principals are 12-month jobs. So between my 12-month job and my company and being a mentee to my beautiful niece that is a senior this year, Sarah, and a beautiful baby girl, my daughter, Dr. Penny the Golden Doodle, I don't have a lot of time. So if you would like to meet with me and discuss strategies for you to move into leadership, whether it's principalship or assistant principalship, whatever, you can definitely go to my website, www.rayanne, RAYEANNE, King.com, one word, and go to leadership strategy sessions and book your time. And it's only $100. And for $100 and 45 minutes, I will espouse upon you all the information that I know about leadership and all those great things. All right. So yesterday I got a question about pedagogy, and pedagogy is the method in which, or strategies in which, teachers teach. A lot of times when principals or people come in, we'll notice the teacher doesn't have a strong pedagogy. They just don't have any strategies and skills, or they don't have a toolkit to really teach. And you're oh, it should be easy. It's not. So that is what pedagogy means. So today's topic is implicit biases. This is the focus for this one. This is one of the major ones. And yesterday we talked about confirmation bias, about how you might have heard things or seen things on TV, and when one person of color does it, it confirms what you believe about them. But today is implicit bias. And implicit bias, I'm going to make sure I give you the exact way you should know it. It's your unconscious attitude or stereotype that affects the understanding, actions, and decisions. Okay? So implicit bias is unconscious. A lot of times you don't know you're doing it, right? You're not fully aware about how you're actually acting or doing these and how they influence your behaviors. And implicit biases are very dangerous because they're unconscious, because they are things that we do unknowingly. It can become a very slippery slope. So let's go through some examples, because I always believe that real world examples support people's understanding of things. So implicit bias. The number one implicit bias, well, let's go to a classic one. A classic implicit bias is the one that's famous where you hear people say, oh, a white woman saw a black man walking past her car and she locked her door. She might not even have been told always that black men are dangerous, but it was her unconscious thought to lock the door. Another implicit bias is name assumption, name-based assumptions. And this one is very sad because it is when you see a person's name and you make automatic assumptions. And traditionally, especially with students of color and black females especially, a lot of times black women struggle with their names. I have several brilliant friends that were, graduated early and have PhDs, own their own companies, just are massively successful. And they will tell you that they have fought the whole time because of their names. I like the Tamikas and the Shanikas and the Kenyas and all. I love those names. I'm Rayanne. Listen, I love it. But for them, it has always sometimes a struggle, because a lot of times you'll hear people say, oh, don't name that baby that. Name them something so when they submit their resume, nobody will know who it is. That is because of the implicit biases that come with names. That is because you don't want people to know that you're black before they meet you, because you want to get as far as you can in the interview process and the job process before someone notices you're black. And in schools, that affects students too. If a student's name has more of an Afrocentric or what's considered black, a lot of times the teachers may place them in certain areas of the room. They might place them further away from her desk. And it's just because she sees the name. Another one is counseling career advice. A lot of times black students are not allowed into honors or AP courses or provided even access to IB because the assumption that they won't be able to do it. And that right there is one of the most dangerous, because it honestly minimizes the opportunities that students have, which furthers the opportunity gap that is developed. So again, we don't have an achievement gap. Black people can learn. Black people are astute. Black people are brilliant. We can do it. It's the opportunities that we are lacking. They're not giving us opportunities. So a lot of times you'll have a very smart child, and instead of saying, oh, this child is smart, people say, oh, he happened to pass. Oh, I don't know how he did it, but he did such a good job. And it's kind of like, girl, he did it because he's smart. Don't come for that. Another area is gifted. Black children are less likely to go into gifted programs. One of the most stressful things is Brown versus Board of Education, right? So, hello, Kenya. So Brown versus Board of Education was extremely dangerous, and actually it did more harm to the black community than it did good. And one thing, and I'm going back to gifted, why it's so dangerous, was because when Nixon finally decided to say, okay, let's go ahead and let black people have equal educational rights, equal opportunities, he said a statement that is very, very telling to the mindsets of many. He said that if you sit black children next to white children, they will learn better. And that is a very, very profound statement. And so it's one of those implicit biases where it's the belief that a black child can't do as well. Let's put them with white children. Let's put them in more of a white environment. Even within the black community. Even in the black community, a lot of times we'll say things like, well, my child goes to that school. He can't go to the school with all the blacks. I need my baby to go to that good school. Well, what made it a good school? Because they're white children? Because it's less black children? Another implicit and unknown bias is even with classroom management. A lot of times, Black children, if you go to a Black function, if you go to a Caribbean function, if you go to a Latinx function, we're loud. We have a lot of fun. We're going to turn up. The Black and brown community, we turns up. We like to be loud, boisterous. We like to party. But that doesn't mean we're in danger. That doesn't mean there's a problem. Black people, a lot of time, we're just way more energetic. We're way more enthusiastic. And a lot of times in classrooms, teachers will see that as a problem or disruption. Where a white child maybe not be considered disruption. They might be engaged. So even with those concepts, when we're deciding where to place our students, we have to be extremely cautious of the language that we use with even our children. When you say, oh, I'm going to send you to that school because it's a better school and the school's predominantly white, then you've given your child an unconscious bias that if I'm not at a white school, my education will be less. So, personal note, I went to Florida State, the Florida State University. Predominantly, it's a PWI, predominantly white institute. And I spent my whole time with FAM. I went there because financially, it worked out better for me. However, I did notice that some of my friends coming out of FAM were so much more prepared for everything. They were prepared for everything. I would tell you, my friends that came out of FAM knew how to navigate spaces all the time. Versus me and my friends that came out of a PWI, Florida State. Yeah, it's a great school. It's on TV. But you're not sending your child there to go to a football game. You're sending your child there to get an education. And FAM, when my friends, even though people say about HBCUs, sending your child to a white school prepares them for the world. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It teaches them how to code switch more. It puts them in an environment where they are constantly code switching, but it does not prepare your child for the world. It was. So when I had the opportunity to go to an HBCU, I chose Howard. I've always loved Howard. Howard prepared me to be able to sit here and speak with confidence about implicit biases, speak about racism, speak about things that are happening to the Black community on a public forum without feeling any concern about, well, what are they going to think about me? So those are those implicit biases. When you're putting your children in schools, when you're saying things, even as parents, it is important to watch the language you use. I had somebody say, it was the young lady just was late. She was young too. And they were like, ugh, that's why I don't do nothing with Black people. I don't work with Black people because they always are late. And it was a non-Black person there too. And I kind of was looking like, girl, I know you didn't. Because I know every culture and every place that's been late. We have to be mindful of what we say because that right there, she spoke an implicit bias that she had within herself. That she was unconscious about. That she automatically believes that if you book with a Black company or if you work with a Black organization, they're going to be late and that the product is going to be inferior and that you're not going to receive the highest quality. And Angel, yes, attending the HBCU. I wish I would have did it for undergrad, but I got to do it for my graduate. And baby, I rocked at Howard. It does prepare you. Angel, my friends that came out of FAM, I was looking at them like, so what y'all doing now with y'all resumes? I was not prepared the same way they were. I wasn't. Florida State was a lot of fun. It was great, but I wasn't ready. Not for the world. And that's one of the biggest things. We have to be careful of the teachers that we push our children to have. Just because a teacher is really great with a white set of children doesn't mean they're going to be great with yours. So let me give you a story time also. When I was applying for assistant principal jobs, I did some in DCPS. And I went to a school named Lafayette. And that school, I knew DC to wear uniforms, but they didn't. They didn't wear uniforms there. They were very affluent. All the children had not nannies, baby. They had au pairs. There's a difference. There's a price difference. And it was just a different experience. But the children already came in there reading. They already knew how to read. And so those teachers that were in that school always hit their academic goals. They were great. Oh, the students score high. The parents love them. But if I already had the resources and the time to teach my child how to read, and the parents didn't teach them, they hired someone to teach the child how to read. So if I had resources to do that, then my children in my neighborhood would be high too. And so that is when I had my biggest aha that, oh, snap. We assuming that our teachers in the Black community are horrible. They're not. It's just we're not given the opportunities. We're not given, if I could sit at home and hire somebody to do the things that other families are able to do, we will all be just winning. I think it's a funny thing when people say, you're not ugly, you just don't have any money. Same concept. You're not ugly, you just don't have no money. And that's some of the problem. We want to not focus on the true issue, and the issue is opportunity. It's a lack of opportunity. And when we push our children in spaces where people have these biases, ooh, her name Kenya, ooh, her name Tamika, oh, look how big he is, oh, he big and Black, I'm scared, he gonna be my student, ooh, look, oh, she loud, she laugh loud. I said, Sarah, I explained to her what's implicit bias. I said, Pooh, what are some implicit biases that you think your teachers have done with you? And she said, I hate when you're loud, they automatically think you're dumb. I said, really? She was like, that's why when I go into class, I just don't say nothing, because if you don't say nothing and you just be quiet, they at least think you smart and won't bother you. But if they think you're loud, they automatically think you're dumb. And I said, that is interesting. But she's a high school senior that now is about to go into college with the mindset that silence and complicitness and all of these things that make her more malleable to the dominant culture is what's going to get her ahead. That if she makes too much noise, she's going to be deemed as hard to deal with and less knowing and things. But again, that's coming from someone that is a teenager and dealing with it. Can you imagine being an adult at work and not having voice and agency, not being seen? Our children are dealing with it, and as we instill in our children that if you're not seen, if you don't use your voice, you will be okay. And that has caused our community to further lap behind others, which is why it's so important for us to push this sense of understanding of, okay, you know what? There are going to be implicit biases, unconscious things I do. How do I deal with it? So I'm going to give you some strategies, or some strategies for you to give people. Strategy number one, you have to be self-aware. You got to be self-aware. And that's easier said than done. A lot of us are not self-aware at all with a lot of things. You have to be self-aware. When somebody calls you on something, this generation, they're trying to read you. No. If someone says something to you, it's not always a read. Sometimes it's just bringing it to your attention because you're not self-aware. The next thing you have to do is be intentional in your actions. Intentional. When I go to foreign countries and travel, I'm intentional not to speak. You ask my mom and sister, when we go and travel out the country, my first thing that we've been traveling for years together, but I'm going to be like, remember, shh, don't say nothing. Shh. And you might say, well, why you don't speak? If I'm going to Panama, if I'm going to Cartagena, if I'm going to countries where I look like everybody, I stay real quiet because I know I can slide myself up in there and people notice. If I go places where I don't look like them, I still stay quiet because I don't want them to know that I'm American. Because I already know that there's some biases that come with being American. Angel, you said my little Black son is gifted and has always been very outspoken. By the time he's in 4th grade, he would not even advocate for himself. Girl, for real. That is so true. They don't. And people think that teaching your child how to advocate is being disrespectful. Because of the culture that is the dominant culture, unfortunately, when we talk, even when I am going off on my dog, Penny, I'm like, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Like, it's with a dog. We're very animated. It's just part of who we are as a people. You have to teach them how to advocate, but still be present in this space. And that's the bad part. It's like, how do you teach your child how to advocate without somebody calling you saying, oh, your son is very disrespectful. He did this, that, and this. He's just like, he was trying to explain to you that you did number 5 wrong. And he wanted to make sure you didn't mark him wrong. So advocating is hard. You have to teach them how to. Because if you don't, then he's going to always accept what's given to him. And that's a dangerous thing right there. Also, engage in training. Like, even black folks, we need to get us trained on how to unthink the things we've been taught. We just got to train ourselves. So the problem right now Gen Alpha and Gen Z is having, the latter part of Gen Z, is that they are able to speak and have voice. However, they don't know, they haven't been trained on how to deliver it so it can be heard. It just sounds very loud. So training is really important. Being able to learn how to speak and being able how to navigate spaces. Unfortunately, right now, we're not going to be able to stop code switching today. We're going to have to still code switch. But when you code switch, you keep the language, but you just change the tone. For example, when I go and speak in front of people, a lot of times when I'm like at work and I'm in my principal tone, I drop my octave. I intentionally drop my octave or level. It's like, hello. All right, everyone. Today we are going to discuss, thank you so much. When I talk to parents, it's just like I drop it. When I'm with my friends and family, it goes up even higher. I'm loud. I'm like, yes, all that. But when I'm in principal mode, it just automatically drops. If I'm presenting, I drop an octave. If I am doing it, even now, my voice has dropped a little bit of an octave than what I normally talk. It's just part of like voice control and trying to keep a steady tone so that you don't make anyone upset. It's me being intentional. So we just have to work on those things. Also, be conscious as parents where you put your children. Be conscious of where you put your children. Be mindful of what schools you enroll them in. Be mindful of what settings you place them in. The hardest thing for a black child is to grow up with white children only. And people say, I loved it. Child, I went through that identity crisis. Child, I went to a predominantly white school, was listening to 9-inch nails and everything. Wasn't greasing my hair. Hair fell out. Didn't know I was black anymore. Sun tanning. Then some things happened and I ended up at an all-black school. And I was in for a rude awakening. A rude one. I realized I was already black, so why was I out there tanning? It was a lot of things I realized. But hopefully you learned something. So as you understand, yesterday as we spoke about confirmation bias, it's those things that we think about people and the moment they do something. My favorite confirmation bias is black folks eating watermelon at work functions. Y'all know we still clear watermelon. We don't want them to think that black people like watermelon, even though we do love it. It's refreshing. Because we don't want to confirm a bias. And an implicit bias is an unconscious thing, something we're unaware of, where we judge people on their names. We judge people on just simple things, and it's the assumptions we make. If we hire a black company, they're going to be late. The product's going to be inferior. The prices are high. But as I'm learning with my company, my prices aren't high. You just can't afford me. There's a difference. I learned that one. All right, so if you've learned anything, go ahead and drop it in there. And if you don't know anything else, take away from this conversation that provide yourself grace, provide yourself a space for redemption and second chances, and provide it to others. Also remember, if you have a child, that human probably has only been alive 15, 14, 5, 6, 7, 9 years. I know, I like chicken too. You know, my school predominantly black, so we stay ordering chicken. I'm so distractible. Oh, and you know what? We're doing a little crab feast for my teachers. You know, don't tell them. I'm bringing them crabs back, them blues. Yeah. Ooh, they love their principal when I do that. Then they talk about me later. But definitely bring in your thoughts and put them in the chat. Provide second chances. Also, like I like to tell people, if your child is 15, 16, 17, if your child's 10, 9, 11, remember they've only been alive 9, 10, 11, 12 years. And provide them grace. Because you're 30-something, 40-something, and we still got to give you grace. Also, if you're a teacher, do the same thing. If you are a leader looking for some coaching around leadership strategies to become a principal or instructional coach, definitely go to my website, www.rayandking.com. Go to the leadership strategy sessions and book a session. And it's only $100. You can talk to me for 45 minutes about what we can do, whether it's building your portfolio, practicing interview questions. I do sit on principal interviews all the time. Thursday, I will be doing interview and doing interviews all day. So this is what I do. I sit there and pick people for jobs. And last but not least, if you know someone that is looking for some inherent bias support with their school or with their organization or company, if you notice that there's a little bias things going on, definitely reach out to me again at www.rayandking.com. You can find me also on Facebook at drrayandking.com. And thank you so much for your time. I love you. And I will see you tomorrow for our last day. Let me see if I can do it again. Oh, no, it didn't do it. Okay. It's okay. I'll see you tomorrow for our last day, and I hope to have a great discussion. Thank you so much, Kenya, for inviting everybody. Y'all come back. Hey, man, how you doing? Yes, I used to work with him. He was a good teacher. All right, guys. Bye. Love y'all.